Pokemon, just being able to take hits a little bit better. It's naturally quite bulky, and so being able to deal with that feels really good.
All right, so let's get into it. Game 1 of the VGC 2022 Vancouver Regional Championship Finals between Gavin Michaels and Zac Emerzian. Zac on the top of your screen with a Nihilego Calyrex Shadow Rider lead, and then Gavin on the bottom of your screen with Grimmsnarl Venusaur.
Yep, and this Nihilego, certainly an interesting selection, maybe desperate to try and see something like, ooh, I don't know, a Charizard that it would have much preferred, and the Venusaur is not what it wanted to take a look at, because I don't see a real answer to this Venusaur over on Zac's side of the field. And with that in mind, I mean, that just leaves you so much room for the Grimmsnarl to maybe set up a screen. Obviously, a light screen would be absolutely huge here when you're facing down 2 special attackers, and a special attacker that wants to boost itself as well. That also means Gavin has complete control of the weather whenever it needs to. You know, he gets to choose. There's no weather war in this matchup, right? Like we saw in his top 4, there was always that consideration of playing around the issue of Kyogre coming in. Doesn't have to worry about this.
Well, there are no switches here in the first turn of Game 1. Instead, Gavin deciding to Dynamax, or Gigantamax, excuse me, the Venusaur here right away. So you can go for G-Max Vine Lash, potentially even other things like Max Quake into Nihilego. Definitely would not appreciate that attack. And is Zac going to respond on his own? No Dynamax. Instead, we'll just, we're going to have a light screen out of Grimmsnarl on Gavin's side, so that will mitigate the damage of special attacks for the next 8 turns. Astro Barrage hitting both targets there, but not doing a lot of damage. Meteor Beam, now it's time for the animations. This is something that the Lunala also has access to on Gavin's end. It's a 2-turn attack that you're able to activate in 1 turn because of the power herb, so you'll be able to use it, get that special attack buff into the Venusaur, bringing it down to half HP, but then the G-Max Vine Lash into Calyrex will bring it down under half its HP, meaning another attack would take it down, and even if you don't target the Calyrex, eventually the Vine Lash damage will do it.
Yeah, the Vine Lash is going to start adding up, and that's a really good turn for Gavin, right? Is the Venusaur's looking really, really healthy here. The Nihilego is sort of the focal point right now of what Zac has out on the field, because it did get the special attack buff, and even with that special attack boost from charging up the Meteor Beam, the Venusaur still felt really, really safe. I think the Grimmsnarl may have done just enough at this point to be able to say, you know what, I got the light screen set up. I would love to see Gavin kind of try and turn the screw here a little bit and get that Venusaur using its chlorophyll and just taking those knockouts, especially with the Calyrex almost being taken off the field, right, by the presence of the Vine Lash tick damage. Here's Rotom. This is what I really wanted to see. But Nihilego going for the Dynamax here.
Yeah, Nihilego stealing the spotlight. We thought that Rotom Heat is a great Dynamax option because if Groudon sets the sun up for you, you're going to have boosted Max Flares. You have Max Lightning in case the Charizard is in the back. But instead, Zac deciding Nihilego, if you can get a knockout on this turn and get this Beast Boost to start rolling in, that could be really helpful for Zac's cause. This Max Rockfall will target into the Venusaur, and it is not enough thanks to the light screen that the Grimmsnarl set up on the previous turn. It will set up the sand here, so there'll be some chip damage at the end of the turn. But then Max Quake from Venusaur, that's really strong into Nihilego, but it's actually not enough. It will get a special defense boost onto it, but I was kind of anticipating it to do more damage.
Well, that's that Max Rockfall coming into play, setting the weather and being really impactful, of course, on how you deal with this Nihilego. The Rotom getting a little bit of chip damage on the way in. I do like Nihilego as the focal point here. I think that's really important to note. And the Max Rockfall setting up the sand as well is going to get chip damage going all around the board as well. But you want chip damage? I got chip damage for you. It's G-Max Vine Lash, and it racks up between turns. So that Rotom switch in, it's almost down to half. I do think the Nihilego is still in a little bit of danger, especially if that Venusaur decides to go for it, you know, a little bit earlier on by just maybe switching in the sun. But this Venusaur, you know, if it doesn't get the sun this turn, this Venusaur doesn't get to enjoy its 3rd turn of Dynamax. It's as simple as that, and the value of that is really up to Gavin on how he wants to play this one out.
No switches, Max Guard instead from Zac on this turn on the Nihilego. So if the Scary Face goes into that slot, he called it correctly. No Scary Face for Gavin. And the Max Quake also targeting Nihilego. So a free turn for this Overheat to connect on the Venusaur and take it out. You trade those 2 the drops on your special attack anytime to get rid of Venusaur.
That is a huge turn for Zac, right? The Max Guard being so impactful there, making sure that the Scary Face doesn't come through. I was thinking so much about the sun stun being needed for the Venusaur, but Scary Face will do the job as well. And the Nihilego just seeing that, being able to max guard. Actually, the first knockout of the game, even though I think Gavin had a much more aggressive lead here, heading over, of course, to Zac's side of the field. So he's got that Pokemon advantage, and he's got one more turn of the Dynamax available. This Lunala is going to come in, is, of course, taking advantage of the Shadow Shield right now, so probably feeling pretty good. But this Nihilego, wants to start picking up knockouts and maybe trying to run away with the game. I would argue that the Grimmsnarl is a juicy-looking target, because then you get rid of the threat of the Scary Face, which could cause problems this turn and in the future.
What is unfortunate, though, for Zac with his Nihilego is that Rotom got the KO there, so you don't actually get the Beast Boost onto Nihilego, which can make this attack even stronger. But he doesn't have that. Instead, the Max Rock Ball will not take out Grimmsnarl. He's able to hang on. And then this Volt Switch, it's not doing damage, but more importantly, it gets rid of the Shadow Shield.
Well, it breaks the Shadow Shield, and it gets Rotom out to be able to come back in post overheat drop, right? You can't leave the Rotom in just sat there with -2 special attack expecting it to do really big damage. The Tapu Fini selection here seems really nice to me. Probably not that threatened by anything going on that side of the field right now, and can just start to wear things down, particularly Zac's build with the choice specs. Being able to wear things down would be absolutely huge. As Spirit Break, yeah, Tapu Fini's probably going to be pretty okay with that, but the benefit of the choice specs kind of immediately removed by the special attack drop right there.
And there is the Trick Room from Lunala, so Gavin is going to twist the dimensions here, and now those conventionally slower Pokemon like Grimmsnarl or Lunala, who is slower than Nihilego, but specifically, probably that Groudon in the back is going to appreciate being able to move before the Nihilego, before the Calyrex Shadow Rider. It could be pretty important for Gavin.
The Trick Room here kind of, I think, seals up the next few turns at least for Gavin, right? Like, he is not threatened by being able to get outsped, right? Like, the Scary Face was sort of his first option, and Scary Face didn't work out for him. It went into a max guard, so pivot over to Trick Room, and it was the safest Trick Room in the world. You had Shadow Shield, you had Lunala, being able to quite comfortably take that Volt Switch, and Grimmsnarl, yeah, just going for it with the Spirit Break here. Tapu Fini took a good chunk of damage from that, and of course all the residuals between turns, so it may just get knocked out very quickly as Tapu Fini has to pivot into Trick. Now, this is a very awkward one as Lunala gets the choice specs, Tapu Fini gets the Power Herb.
Oh, he didn't click Meteor Beam. If he clicked Meteor Beam, that would have been an amazing play because he would have been choice locked into a 2-turn move. So this choice specs is actually going to be pretty strong. The Tapu Fini actually kind of playing secret agent, helping out Gavin's team here by making that choice specs Moongeist Beam even stronger. Power Gem doesn't even get the KO on Grimmsnarl. Instead, the Sand gets it. So that's now 2 opportunities where Nihilego could have got a Beast Boost that it was not able to accomplish.
Yeah, the Beast Boost has just been missing so far in this game, and really, this Lunala should be in a great position to try and close out the game. I mean, it's now choice specs locked into Moongeist Beam. That feels pretty good if you want to be locked into a move. I was worried about the Meteor Beam, but Groudon in the Trick Room here. My goodness. Of course, it's kind of awkward, right? Like, Rotom has taken a lot of damage already. That's an easy pickup for a Moongeist Beam, and assuming there is a connection on the Precipice Blades, this Nihilego is absolutely doomed when it comes to Precipice Blades being able to get the knockout here. So Gavin in this late game Trick Room, something we've been seeing growing over the past couple of weeks. That's 3 more turns. I don't know if Zac can stall it out, especially with the way his team is built, right? Like, his team is not built to slow games down.
And it is with the Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back. It's not like the Calyrex can just take full knockouts on Groudon, maybe Lunala obviously for the super effective hit, but it's not like you can really compete in the damage and if it's down 3v1. But Dark Pulse from Rotom Heat, you don't have to worry about it anymore because of the critical hit, taking out Lunala. That choice specs is now irrelevant because Lunala is out of the game. Rock Slide from Groudon connects onto both. It takes out both as well. That is a pretty important double hit on the Rock Slide there because now you have Groudon versus Calyrex Shadow Rider.
With 2 turns of Trick Room remaining, right? And that's the really, really big thing. This Groudon as well, is quite hard to knock out because of that leftovers. And the Calyrex, it needs to essentially, it's being asked a lot. The Calyrex needs to get out of Trick Room, which is 2 turns. That's going to be a double protect, so you're already fishing a little bit there. And then immediately after, that Calyrex does does just right away need to get a one-hit knockout on this Groudon, or else it's going to be able to land literally any attack and get the knockout. So here we go. Let's see if he can go for it. There is one Rock Slide, obviously not going to go into that. There is a world where Groudon misses.
That's what I'm going to say. 10% of the time, Rock Slide does not connect onto the Calyrex. You have one turn left, 30% chance. He does not get it. It's up to the Rock Slide.
There's the animation.
It connects onto Calyrex, and Gavin Michaels has won game one here in Vancouver.
Ooh, that game got dangerously close at the end.
Very scary if he missed, if either he got the double protect or missed Rock Slide. Could be a different world.
It could be a very different game, but Gavin seeing through the end game, and what choices did he have? I mean, we've seen actually all of Groudon's moves over the course of the day. Both of them have the opportunity to miss. So that's a Precipice Blades and a Rock Slide. Bulk Up not going to help you out in the long run, and Protect not doing enough damage. I think if you got through that, I still think it would have been able to take one of the Astral Mirages, even single target, because it was just at full health, right? And that is still a whole lot to be asked, but a critical hit, something like that coming through, would have been absolutely huge. Zac played that game really, really well. I do love the selection of Rotom here, but at the end of the day, Rotom and Nihilego felt a little greedy to me.
Yeah, I think the Rotom makes a lot of sense because it's strong as a Dynamax attacker into both Venusaur and Charizard. The only unfortunate thing is if Venusaur decides to Sleep Powder and you want Top Infinity to set up the Misty Terrain, Rotom doesn't benefit from it because he's not grounded, right? So it's very scary since he's not Safety Goggles. You kind of have to weigh your options if you're Zac. Is, if the Venusaur is just going to Gigantamax, then I don't have to worry about Sleep Powder. I can save Rotom later on in the match, have Max Flare, maybe Groudon sets the sun up for me anyway. You will still have to probably break through the light screen from Grimmsnarl, which is another key factor we kind of forget. Once Grimmsnarl leaves the field, you kind of forget just how important the light screen is.
Well, here's the other thing. Zac brought 4 special attackers into a light screen.
Right.
It was always going to be a hard task, wasn't it? Like, the Nihilego damage felt really underwhelming because it was attacking into a light screen and it wasn't getting beast boosts. There was no way that there was going to be enough damage from that Calyrex into the light screen to be able to do it. So there's got to be a change. And the hard issue here, right, and this is something that we've talked about a few times over the course of the weekend, particularly myself and Scott, is how valuable are these things? You load your team of special attackers and you just run into light screen. The Rotom was being asked to do so much. The Rotom was being asked to Dark Pulse the Lunala, deal with the Venusaur with fire attacks as well, and then avoid everything from the Groudon. And this Groudon having Rock Slide just makes this so difficult for the Rotom.
Yeah, it actually could be a little bit different of a scenario if the Groudon just had, say, Heat Crash and Precipice Blades, but because Gavin has opted for the Rock Slide in this matchup, it actually makes it kind of favorable when you have a Groudon in against Rotom. So let's see what Zac's adjustment is. If he wants to force a game 3, it's going to have to happen here and now. If not, Gavin will walk away as the regional champion. Nihilego and Grimmsnarl is the lead for Zac, and then Grimmsnarl Venusaur yet again for Gavin.
But what do you do? Looking at this lead, you think, well, I imagine the Rotom's got to be in the back, and here's an awkward one, right? What made way for the Grimmsnarl? I really hope it's not the Rotom. But then at the end of the day, you're missing...
Then you're missing Top Infinity?
You're missing a Restricted as well, right? Like, it is a very awkward one. But Nihilego going for the Protect here. I think Gavin, either way, is just in a great position to just, throw up a light screen. Why not?
Light screen, no Dynamax or Gigantamax on his end here. So we will have matching light screens for the next 8 turns. We're going to have some less damage output. And the Sleep Powder was the adjustment for Gavin deciding to try to put the Nihilego to sleep. So the correct decision by Zac to just protect there and see what Gavin's plan was.
But Grimmsnarl can also just pull the play that Gavin tried earlier, which it went into a Max Guard, right? Which is just Scary Face and attack the Nihilego. Even if the Nihilego goes for it, I think that's going to be a problem. I do like Zac's change-up here, seeing just how impactful, of course, the light screen was against him. Maybe establishing that that's actually really good against a number of Gavin's team, but Gavin has Pokemon like Groudon that cause problems on the physical side of things that may force a Reflect out, and that kind of means Gavin has a little more room to throw in Scary Faces, to try and play, maybe turn over to those Spirit Breaks a little bit earlier as well. So overall, I still think Gavin's in a really good position just on the Pokemon that Zac has available to him, even though we don't know the back two.
And then this turn, no Dynamax out of Nihilego, so instead it will be the Meteor Beam, that 2-turn attack. It is, it's not like it's going to be super effective into either of these slots. It will be strong because of the special attack bonus you get from the first turn of the charge of Meteor Beam. And you are behind the light screen again, so the Venusaur is not great, but you don't even need the Scary Face if you're just going to Max Quake directly into Nihilego, bringing it down to around 30% of its HP. So all we have left on this turn are the Grimmsnarl's moves. They can go for potentially a Spirit Break, lowering the special attack on Venusaur. That's exactly what we're going to see from Gavin. That Spirit Break will go into Nihilego. It is resisted, so Nihilego hangs on with 9 HP remaining and loses that special attack drop it just tried to set up. And there is a Spirit Break in response.
Yep, Spirit Breaks for Spirit Breaks. I mean, you've both set up a light screen, you're both Spirit Breaking. It makes sense. They're both following the same Grimmsnarl game plan. But because of the Venusaur Dynamaxing or Gigantamaxing, then it's actually just in a much better position, right? And what I could see here happening would be something like a G-Max Vine Lash. Let that deal with the Nihilego and just keep putting down the pressure by putting down more damage every single turn. Zac seems to be following this little bit of a game plan, right? You have to Meteor Beam to get the special attack boost. Once you got the special attack boost, then you feel confident to Dynamax, right? Like in other formats, we've seen people Swords Dance and then Dynamax. And this is kind of the same idea, but, you know, the Spirit Break very nicely taking that away and maybe making Zac think a little bit more about, is it ready to Dynamax? I mean, it's definitely not the Nihilego right now. That is so low. As Nihilego switches out and Solgaleo comes in.
Okay, so Solgaleo is one of the adjustments for Zac in this game, too. That means he left either Rotom Heat or Tapu Fini in the back here in this matchup. G-Max Vine Lash will go into the Grimmsnarl slot. Maybe Gavin saying, hey, let me get some damage on Grimmsnarl, and then Nihilego gets knocked out anyway, thanks to Vine Lash, but Nihilego did switch out. Here is the Spirit Break, though, from Gavin into the Grimmsnarl, brings it down to under half of its HP remaining there thanks to the super effective attack. So what is this adjustment with Solgaleo here? I guess you can get hit by a Max Quake and that'll really help you. It'd give you the weakness policy, but I don't know if Gavin's going to let that happen.
I mean, the Solgaleo has to put in work. It's the adjustment that he's bought, and it's going to have to do a lot. My big concern is, like, yes, it can take a Max Quake. Yes, it can get its weakness policy activated. The big thing it can do back is, of course, the Max Mindstorm or Psychic Fangs. But this is my concern, right? If you just take out the Venusaur, which would be, you know, obviously disappointing for Gavin, what does he bring in that just deals with you, right? Like, he has options at that point that come in and just, you know, quite comfortably handle the Solgaleo, just going all the way through it. The light screen does make it a little bit harder. I think what happens when the light screen comes to 4 is, you know, the light screen makes that weakness policy even safer to activate. But at the same time, like, yes, the Solgaleo can deal with this Venusaur, but what does it do against the Groudon?
Well, Solgaleo is going to Dynamax this turn, and Gavin actually maxed guarding on his last turn of G-Max with the Venusaur. Reflect out of Grimmsnarl makes sense. You have Solgaleo right in front of you, so you want to mitigate the damage from physical attacks, and Max Mindstorm, like you were predicting, goes into Venusaur's max guard. Here is Zac's Grimmsnarl, though, with a Spirit Break towards the other one, not doing too much damage thanks to the Reflect being set up.
Well, there is another option, right? Like, you want the Reflect because the Solgaleo is going to start causing problems if you let it just sort of sit on the field for that long. Grimmsnarl just clinging on. But it's another thing, like, it does look very wasteful on paper to let that last turn go begging when it comes to dealing damage with the Dynamax. But actually, I think at this point, the Venusaur wants to be back in its regular form. Solgaleo would be something to deal with that. The only concern I have, right, is like the Solgaleo can't be scary-faced. So you do have to make the Groudon play at this point. If you want to go for the fast Sleep Powder, you do have to make the Groudon play, and that's something that you know, Gavin is going to be intricately aware of. But the Groudon probably feels really good against the Solgaleo anyway, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that one, you know. But the big thing is, you really, really need to be careful. You know, if you don't check that Solgaleo, it could Max Mindstorm. That Max Mindstorm is going to completely shut the Grimmsnarl out of being able to scary face partners at any point in the game. So it's a tough one as Grimmsnarl leaves the field for Gavin. There it is. Chlorophyll.
The classic combination with dynamic speed change in Sword and Shield. You bring Groudon in, and immediately Venusaur gets the Chlorophyll boost. Sucker Punch, though, into his own Solgaleo. I was going to say, what does Zac's Grimmsnarl do? He only has 3 HP left, so you know it's going down at the end of the turn because of the Vine Lash. He's going to activate the weakness policy. Nope. Solgaleo avoids, so now he's +2. This Max Mindstorm is going to be massive into the Venusaur, knocking it out here. So, and Zac also gets the free switch in to the back when Grimmsnarl gets knocked out.
Sleep Powder giveth, Sleep Powder taketh away, and in this turn it really does taketh away because Gavin goes all in on Sleep Powder. And honestly, at the same time, Zac kind of goes all in on Sleep Powder too. He just goes all in on the miss of Sleep Powder, just commits to it and says, right, activate the weakness policy, Max Mindstorm, on we go, son. But now this Solgaleo, I mean, there's obviously the screens in play. It is going to be a little bit harder to deal that damage, but I mean, That's a really smart play from Zac, thinking, I've seen Sleep Powder miss, I've seen Sleep Powder hit. I'm just going to bank on the best outcome for me. And if that comes through, then we're in a really good position here.
Here is the Calyrex Shadow Rider for Zac, so he's revealed his 4th Pokemon. All he has remaining in the back is a 9 HP Nihilego. So maybe there's a moment you bring in Nihilego as kind of a sack so that the Calyrex doesn't take any damage, but you do have 1 turn of Dynamax left.
Yeah, I mean, I think Solgaleo is in a great position to take advantage of it, right? Like, it has the Psychic Terrain as well. There's no way to easily change that. And yeah, Calyrex leaving the field. Nihilego probably out here to try and buy a little bit of time, so the Calyrex can feel a little bit better, particularly in a turn, you know, where it has options. But, ooh, Max Steel Spike into the Grimmsnarl. That's going to help out huge against the Groudon.
That's going to knock out Grimmsnarl and also, importantly, give yourself a defense boost onto the Solgaleo, as well as his teammate, even though it's not going to matter on the Nihilego. It will matter for the Groudon, though, because he's going to be doing less damage with this Precipice Blades. Does connect onto both. I think Zac's actually kind of happy that the Precipice Blades did hit the Nihilego, so he can freely switch Calyrex back in.
Yep, the Calyrex gets to come back in and obviously not take any damage from the G-Max Vine Lash as well. The G-Max Vine Lash went down way early in the game, so that's the final turn. So the Calyrex gets to stick around and take advantage, of course, of its very, very standard at this point item choice of the Focus Sash. So nice heads-up play there by Zac. Yes, you are down to your last 2 Pokemon, but you are in a restricted pairing. It's actually going to be restricted pairing versus restricted pairing, I would imagine. Would be very shocked to see the Charizard or Incineroar here, as, yeah, there's the Lunala. So it is really the battle of restricted pairs, but there is a slight advantage. This Solgaleo, you know, has been getting some boosts and got to be feeling pretty good about that.
And I love that it's coming down to these last 4 Pokemon, because this is what Series 12 VGC is all about. It's about your restricted pairings, and you use the other Pokemon to supplement your team of 6. Now, it's all, you know, as much damage as you can, your 2 most important Pokemon on the squad.
And honestly, that damage, if you're Zac, you've got to throw that damage at Lunala, because as soon as that Trick Room goes off, that's game over for you at that point. You've got 2 pretty pacey Pokemon. One of them is also very low as well, so as soon as the Groudon gets to land an attack on the Solgaleo, I'd say it's a bad time for Calyrex trying to deal with it. So you're going to have to really make sure you get rid of this Lunala in this turn. There's the Astral Barrage. It will be going into Shadow Shield, but still doing a monstrous amount of damage. And then Solgaleo, yep, following up with the Psychic Fangs. Oh, into the Groudon. I like this a lot.
With Psychic Terrain, and it goes down. He gets rid of Reflect and Light Screen as well. Gets rid of those screens. That's another great effect out of Psychic Fangs. Trick Room from Lunala will get up, but at this point, the Lunala is, you know, at half HP, and Zac still has 2 Pokemon remaining.
Well, really good play from Zac, and something that I didn't get to touch on in the turn before. If you take out the Groudon, that's the spread attack gone. The spread attack is really important there. You know, if you're taking out 1 Pokemon, if you're leaving your opponent with 1, you want to leave, like, they want to have the Pokemon with spread attacks. And Precipice Blades and Rock Slide, guess what they both are, Joe? They're both spread attacks. So very smart play from Zac there to be able to, you know, land that Psychic Fangs, get rid of anything that it may be opening up an end game here, and a really well played set takes us to game 3.
That's all we can ask for in the finals here in Vancouver, is to get a game 3 between these 2 great trainers. I love when people get rewarded for their team building decisions. Psychic Fang, yes, is common on Solgaleo. It's not like it's off the wall, but one, he's already making that decision to run one of the not popular restricteds. Like, there's no Zacian, there's no Kyogre on his team. He has the Solgaleo. Then he chooses Psychic Fangs over one of the other, you know, great move coverage attacks that Solgaleo can have, and it really paid off for him on that turn because of the Psychic Terrain boost and the Psychic Fang is the ground. It worked out perfectly for him.
Well, I also want to say that's a really aggressive play from Zac that he's been rewarded for, right? It's like the Groudon could have very easily protected just to let the Trick Room go up. So the Groudon eats the Psychic Fangs, and then Lunala Trick Rooms, and then you're spread attacking Trick Room, and Gavin not protecting that turn, Zac calling that correctly and being able to get the knockout that he needed on that turn was absolutely huge. So maybe Gavin not being respectful enough with the protect, but also Zac, you got to say, he was rewarded for seeing the end game a couple turns ahead.
It's definitely a difficult spot for Gavin, because if you do protect Trick Room, yes, it wins you the game, but who knows what happens with the Lunala, because you break the Shadow Shield, and then, you know, Psychic Terrain, you know, or the Max, or because remember, Solgaleo was +2, so +2 Max Steel Spike into the Lunala also would have meant that you don't get to set up Trick Room. It was a very tough spot for Gavin.
I will say, this is one of your 50-50s, Joe, right? Like, if you protect the Groudon and he doubles your Lunala, you lose. If you protect, or if you don't protect the Groudon, he doubles your Groudon, you lose.
Right.
So it's like
there's only the one scenario where you come out.
The scenario is you don't protect the Groudon. And I mean, doubling the Lunala, it's a tough one, right? Like, I think doubling into the Lunala, yes, you stop the Trick from going up, but then Groudon gets the spread attack, and that's absolutely huge in that matchup. You know, particularly if the Lunala manages to take a hit or something like that, that would have been really, really big. But yeah, it was a really tough end game. You know, I think you needed to maybe protect the Groudon there. Like, you protect the Groudon and he doubles it, and then you get Trick from up. That would have been the play.
Here we are in Game 3 with Gavin and Zach. One game remaining between one of these trainers coming out as a regional champion. It cannot get any closer than this. All of the 2-0s we felt through the weekend have been worth it to give us this Game 3.
And this is another mix-up in the lead from Zach as well. This lead probably very respectful of what he saw in the last couple of games, where we started to take a look at Sleep Powder in game number 2, and there's one answer to that, and that is, of course, the Misty Terrain. Don't be dealing with those status effects with the Misty Terrain in action, and that Tapu Fini coming back to the 4 was actually left at home last time, but of course it doesn't matter when the Sleep Powder misses. Gavin making a pivot, though, over to Venusaur and Groudon, immediately activating the Chlorophyll. I think the Tapu Fini kind of punishes that a little bit with the Terrain. What he does need to do now, though, is find a safe switch out, but both of these Pokemon are very much threatened while the status effects are being taken away. Typing-wise, this is a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, I do wonder, because you essentially let Gavin have free reign to just click G-Max Vine Lash, because you know he's not going to be crazy enough to Sleep Powder with Misty Terrain, right? And choosing these two as the lead, I presume Grimmsnarl got left behind for Zach if you have your 2 restrictors in the back. Neither of those are really going to want to take damage on the switch-in if Gavin decides to Dynamax. It's the Rotom who would definitely be okay with taking a Vine Lash.
It would be definitely okay with taking a Precipice Blades too, if that's going to be the choice here as well. The Precipice Blades not dealing damage there. Let's say the Vine Lash goes towards the Tapu Fini as well. The Rotom kind of got him for free there. But overall, I mean, this Venusaur could start to really run away with the game if it manages to just keep dealing damage. And a big early Vine Lash, the residual damage is going to make something like the Rotom way easier to pick up with Rock Slide as well. So Venusaur, yeah, does just go for it very, very early on.
That's a one-hit KO. Finny is down.
I mean, Finny's not able to take that. That's not a question that we had to ask, and we've seen the answer for anyone curious. And there it goes, just immediately felled. The Groudon Precipice Blade. So yeah, the Rotom Levitate helps you out there. But honestly, what do you do now against this, against this Venusaur?
I guess you do take a little bit of solace in the fact that you made the right play on Rotom, because he tried to Precipice Blades there and you don't take damage. But it is unfortunate you lost Tapu Fini on turn 1. Now you have to bring Nihilego in, or whoever your one restricted that you brought, which is, if it's the, we're not actually going to find out. I do wonder what that last slot is. It's probably the Solgaleo because it was so strong in game 2, but you just never know.
It has to be Dynamax Rotom here, right?
Yes.
I don't see a world where, okay, Nihilego.
The sun's already up. You can just Max Flare, and Grimmsnarl's not out here. There's no light screen set up. A sun-boosted Max Flare from Rotom Heat. The Venusaur is terrified of that.
Also, the Nihilego is just going to get completely taken out by Precipice Blades. If it's Solgaleo in the back, guess what else doesn't like Precipice Blades? And I don't think the Calyrex is in a position enough to try and deal with it. So yeah, here comes the Dynamax from Zach's side of the field. If it's not Rotom, I'd be absolutely appalled, because I just don't know if Nihilego is going to be able to do enough. And there it is!
There it is! The big oven himself, Rotom Heat. We talked about it in team preview of this set, that Rotom has a really strong matchup into Gavin's Gigantamax Pokemon, and here it is. Let's see if it works out for Zach. Nihilego with the Protect, somewhat forced to protect this turn because you do not want to take a Max Quake or a Precipice Blades, and the Max Quake going into that slot means you will take resisted damage there, or excuse me, mitigated damage, because you're only taking 25% of the damage because of your Protect. Does give a special defense boost to Venusaur, which could actually be important, but that is somewhat even out by the sun being set up. The Rock Slide does connect onto Rotom. That's actually a pretty solid amount of damage there. I was expecting a crit. There is the confirmation. He got a Max Flare. Zach's tournament riding on it, but he Max Flares the Groudon instead of the Venusaur.
He's gone for the Groudon thinking that the Venusaur is going to protect. I think that may just seal up the game, to be honest, with this Rotom not being able to take hits very well. A critical hit from the Rock Slide is bringing it well into range. That is not the target you wanted, Zach.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate, because Nihilego, you can't take Max Quake or Precipice Blade, so you wasted your Protect. Do you Do you go for double protect again? Is that really your best odds of coming back here? No, he doesn't even go for it. The Max Quake instead from the Venusaur towards Nihilego, and that will be enough to knock it out. So Zac is down to his last 2 Pokemon. It's the Rotom Heat and then one of his restricted pair in the back. We actually saw the previous turn that the Groudon was faster than Rotom Heat, so it's not expecting a critical hit. He should be able to take it. He actually takes 0 damage because Rock Slide misses, and Max Flare finally into the Venusaur, but it's just too late. That's a +2 special defense Venusaur after the Max Quake boost.
Yeah.
Like, if he targeted that 2 turns in a row, Venusaur's out.
You got to give credit to Gavin, right? He's played this pairing, this lead combination that we've seen for a couple of years now, really, since we got Gigantamax Venusaur. He's played it flawlessly. It's a little bit disappointing to see Zac kind of fall for this trap a little bit. Like, it's the most obvious pairing on the team, and he's kind of taken the bait and absolutely fallen for it. But those Max Quake boosts coming through are going to be absolutely huge. But this Calyrex, you know, comes in. I mean, it's special defense boosts, right? Like, it's Max Quake special defense boosts.
He doesn't have Dynamax anymore, though.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't know if it's going to be enough. The Groudon is still very, very healthy, and the Groudon's been benefiting from these special defense boosts as well.
Yeah, so now if you Max Flare into the Groudon, you're not going to do enough damage, and you kind of don't want to Max Flare the Venusaur because it's like excessive amounts of damage at that point, but you might need to because of the defense or special defense boost, because I'm not sure if Astral Barrage, because it's spread and because of the Quake boost, is going to be enough to take out Venusaur.
I do not think there is a way that these 2 special attackers can get through 2 special defense boosts from Max Quake and do the requisite amount of damage. And even if they do, right, like, they're basically being asked to do everything. This Rotom's already low. This Calyrex, I mean, it would love to see something like the Lunala, but at the end of the day, right, I think Gavin just has enough in the tank to take a couple of hits, and it's going to try and pivot it around with some protects as well. So this has to be a big turn for Rotom.
Oh,
it gets nothing.
The sleep powder, salt in the wound. Rotom will go to sleep on its last turn of Dynamax. Calyrex clicking Bulldoze as well.
That was my big concern coming into this game, and I said it to you, right? It's like, the Rotom's a great matchup, but what if it just gets sleep powdered? And now we see, right? It's like, that is the focal point of the team. You're not able to do anything with at all. This pairing just being faster, so impactful for Gavin. I mean, that's a pretty pacey Groudon, I'd say, and that is an exceptionally pacey Venusaur with the Chlorophyll active. This game has been a bit of a dismantling from Gavin, just going back to one of the most obvious modes on the team and really running with it.
Right, and then you lead. It is unfortunate because you led Tapu Fini Nihilego into Venusaur Groudon, so Groudon handles Nihilego, Venusaur handles Tapu Fini, and because you don't have a great defensive switch-in, because you have Calyrex instead of your Steel type in Solgaleo, it was kind of a difficult spot. The Rotom almost made it work, but I think it is more credit to Gavin than it is like a detrimental decision-making on Zac's end.
I don't agree quite so much with the Max Flare into the Groudon. I think that's kind of right, like game 1, or game 2 rather, coming back to Horn.
Rotom actually lived on 1 HP.
Rotom took it.
So
don't know if it's going to be able to keep on going after that Max the Rock Slide. But like, my big concern from Zac's side, and not to harp on it too much, is the Max Flare into the Groudon. Now, you knew that the Venusaur was going to be able to start building up those special defense boosts, and you've got to respect that, right? You've got to be able to say, nope, I'm going to be able to take you out before you get those boosts up, because as we saw in game 1, right, special defense boosts are just such a massive problem for Zac's team. He did quite literally bring 4 special attackers again in this game, and yeah, I mean, he didn't need to light screen, he just needed to Max Quake, and he let him get away with that a little bit too easily for my taste. But, Gavin made all the right decisions. The Max Quake was the right decision. He was a little bit fortunate to be able to be offered up juicy targets like Nihilego and Tapu Fini as well, but immediately it's going to be this game sealed up.
Frenzy Plant connects. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The old guard is victorious. Gavin Michaels is your VGC 2022 Vancouver Regional Champion.